right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at setting up a virtual machine in VMware on Windows. The first step in this process was to actually download the VMware installation. So if you search just in Google VMware install, you'll notice that it's now made by Broadcom. So it's free as well. So basically you just click Fusion and Workstation, download. You have to create a Broadcom login. That's pretty straightforward. So basically you just log in and then download it. Okay, so once it is installed, it's going to be over on your in your Windows menu, and you can go down to, and we're going to open it up. In this case, we're using VMware Workstation 17 Player, and you're going to be using it for non-commercial use. Just once you buy it for your company, just pay them. All right, so here we are, and basically we're going to run through creating a new virtual machine. So let's talk about where our virtual machine is actually going to live. If we open up our Windows Explorer here, and you go down onto this PC, and you go down into C drive, if you just have a regular computer, bought a computer at store and you're operating your computer at home, you can put it anywhere you want. Desktop, downloads, documents, pictures, whatever. If you're working in a corporate environment or at a organization where you think you might, where you can go from computer to computer, if you have a system administrator, that type of thing, then you want to make sure that you're saving it onto your C drive. So in the case of the computer I'm working on, this desktop downloads and documents is actually stored on the network. So the problem with that being that if we store our virtual machine on the network, then it's trying to operate the virtual machine off of the network, which is way too slow. Okay, so you want to go onto your disk. So usually the default drive for local hard disk in Windows is C. We go down onto C, and really we can just create a folder right on the root of C. In this case, I've created VM here, and this is where we're going to create our software. Now, we're going to create a Linux virtual machine. You could also create a Windows virtual machine, and basically you just download. You can just download the installation CD from Microsoft, the disk image. So if we go here, the type of disk image file you want is an ISO. Right? So that's what you would do. In this case, we're going to create Linux Mint. And how we get that is we go to Linux Mint. I like Mint. Mainly it's Ubuntu with a lot of drivers and just is more stable in my experience. So it's basically Ubuntu desktop, which is a widely used Linux distribution. And basically we just go to download, and whatever the latest is, whatever the recommended is, you can download it here. Get the Cinnamon edition. If you have a lower, like you really want to run lower, like lower RAM and stuff, you can get the main edition. But in my opinion, basically almost everyone. I mean, if you have a computer with 16 gigs of RAM or even 8 gigs of RAM, you can easily use the Cinnamon edition. So that's the one I download. All right, there we go. So basically you're going to download that, and that's going to result in this file right here, so this ISO file. This is kind of a vanilla Windows computer here, so notice I can't see the actual file type. Get into my opinions on that, but okay, so that's our ISO file right there. So we're going to both save our virtual machine into this VM folder, and we're going to use this ISO file that's also in the same VM. All right, we're ready to go. So let's click Create Virtual Machine. We're going to click on the installer disk, browse the installer disk. We're going to go back on the left-hand side here to our OS. It's just called OS disk. Yours is probably going to be something different. It's our C drive, and double-click VM folder, and then double-click our ISO disk image, and then click Next. In this case, it's not Windows, it's Linux, and we're just going to go ahead and tell it it's Ubuntu 64-bit, because Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu. It's a separate project, but it is based on Ubuntu. So just select Ubuntu 64-bit. This process will also work exactly the same with Ubuntu Desktop. It's really your choice. Ubuntu Desktop is also great. I just have had better luck with it. All right, so now here's where we need to adjust something. So our virtual machine name, you can call it whatever you like. I'm going to call it Mint22. Sorry, Mint20, I guess. Name of my installer. And then we're going to go ahead and click Browse. So remember that this is where you need to change something. So if you know that your PC is being operated and your files are on a network, then basically you know that you just go ahead and find a file or a folder on your C drive here. So I'm going to go ahead and click VM. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Mint22. And I'm going to click off of it, and I'm going to click on that there. Make sure that the folder says Mint22 there. Except I again off, click, and then we're going to click. All right, notice that my path changes right here. You can also just type in the path. Click next. The maximum disk size, we're going to go ahead. This is where you really need to know something about your computer. So on, if you're using Windows 10 or Windows 11, basically if you right-click on the Windows menu, you can go to System right here. So left-click on System, and this has been here forever. Basically, this tells you exactly how much you have, so a lot about your computer. So basically, we have 32 gigabytes of RAM. We're going to need to know that. And then we can go in, we can go back to our Explorer, we can right click on C and we go to Properties, and we're going to go to Properties of C drive here. So we're going to right click Properties. And notice we have free space, we have 346 gigabytes on this computer. And so the hard disk that we're making here is going to start out small, but the maximum size is as big as I can get. Remember, you're not storing tons of data on this thing. Really, you're using it to run some programs and stuff, so we don't need to get it too big, but you do need to make sure that you have plenty of free space. So basically, in this case, we could use up to, we got 350 extra, not extra, but gigabytes. We could make a 40 gigabyte hard drive or a 60 gigabyte hard drive. In this case, I'm going to go with 40 gigabytes. Okay, but it is up to you. We're going to split the disk into multiple files, click Next, and then we're going to customize hardware. So customizing hardware is important in this case because of the fact that these settings are just way too low to be useful. So our strategy here with these virtual machines is that we are going to only run one virtual machine at a time. So we're not going to be running 10 virtual machines or trying to do a lot of stuff on the computer while we're running the virtual machine. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to use the host OS as kind of a host for the virtual machine, and then we're just going to run a virtual machine and not be doing other things at a time. We're not going to leave a bunch of tabs open while we have a virtual machine open. We're just going to kind of focus on using the virtual machine. And as such, what we're going to do is we're actually going to use half of this RAM. So we're going to use, see, this has 32 gigabytes. We want our virtual machine to run pretty well. So basically, we're just going to go ahead and set it, get the slider close to 16 gigabytes. 16384. As long as you leave for Windows 11 and Windows 10, as long as you leave 8 gigabytes free, you're good. Okay, so as long as you leave 8 gigabytes free, in this case we're leaving 16 free, you're going to be just fine. If you have only 16 gigabytes on your computer, which is also fine, you would just split that in half. You'd use 8 for the virtual machine and then leave 8 free for your host operating system. All right, so we can go ahead and close that. Our processors are the same thing. Whoops, I shouldn't have closed that. Right click System. Okay, so processors are the same thing. So basically, if we go here, see we have this 12th gen. We can get the processor 12th gen Intel Core i7 1. Okay, and we're actually going to look up how many cores we have here. So basically, you're just going to copy that processor name. And then you're going to go in here and you're going to see how many cores you have. So basically this came up exactly first, so this gives us some information on these. So we have 12 performance cores. Those are 8 efficient cores, 4 efficient cores, and 20. Intel is changing what they call this all the time. Okay, so if you're asking me like what it is, let's see. Core is a hardware term that describes the number of independent crucial processors in a single chip. Sometimes these are virtual, sometimes they're physical. Basically, what I would do is I take the lower number here. Okay, so basically, if we have 12 cores, we could probably use up to 6 of them in our virtual machine, about half. Total threads, also, it's a good number of threads. So basically, we go in here. I'm going to go ahead and set the number of processors up to 4. In this case, if everything goes well, I might come back in and try to just use it, try to just increase it to 6 later on, which will be fine. The rest of this, we don't have to do anything to. So really just wanted to adjust the memory and processors, and we're going to go ahead and click close. And finally, we're going to go ahead and click finish. And now we have our virtual machine, but we're not done yet. So what we have now is we have a virtual machine. We essentially have a blank computer. So we have a computer that's sitting there. It has no operating system on it yet. And we still have to install the operating system. So we've put in, essentially what we've done is we've loaded the ISO disk onto the virtual machine, and it's ready to install just like we would on a physical computer. So we need to go ahead and what they call play the virtual machine. So we're going to go ahead and click play. And it will start up. And notice that we want to go to Start Linux Mint. One of the most common things we have here is that basically if we click in, notice my mouse will disappear. So I click in. Now, a lot of people, they're very confused at this point. You know, they lose their mouse, and it's hard for them to get it back out. Okay, so basically if you lose your mouse, you're going to go Control-Alt. On the left-hand side of your keyboard, click to Control and Alt. And basically that will release your mouse back onto the host operating system. So we're going to click back in. Now we can operate the menu with our keyboard. We're going to click Enter on Start Linux Mint, and it's going to take a few minutes to start up here. Okay, we have our virtual machine is all started up, and we're going to go ahead and click on Install Linux Mint. All right, now we don't have to worry about a network connection in this case. Your computer's already connected to the network, so the virtual machine is going to share that. It's going to share that connection, and we're just going to click through. It's exactly as you might expect. In this case, it's English for us. We do want to install multimedia codecs. That's one of the advantages of using Linux Mint is we can install all this proprietary software that's not included in Ubuntu Desktop. Ubuntu Desktop might have codecs in it too, but there's just a lot more drivers and stuff in Linux Mint. That's the advantage. Okay, we want to erase the disk and install. Okay, we just choose the default. Since you're erasing the entire disk and installing Linux Mint, you don't have to worry about the partitions. Okay, we're just going to leave it Los Angeles. In this case, we're going to be using the computer for robotics. So we're going to call our computer's name. We're going to name it robot, and then robot. Okay, we're just going to keep the exact same username and password. Of course, you should choose a secure username and password, and we're going to require a password to log in. Okay, so in this case, we're just naming everything robot. So if you're actually naming computers, say you're installing a lot of these you're installing a lot of these computers, you'd want to name unique computer names. But in this case, we're doing things manually. We basically just go back in and change the computer name, add in administrator accounts, whatever we want to do after the fact. Um, so that's basically why I just kind of. All right, so we're just going to wait for it to copy files. It's fairly quick. There is quite a lot of extra software that's installed onto this operating system. I mean, it's meant to be a desktop, consumer environment. The reason that we're installing this and not just Ubuntu server is that as a development machine, there are some advantages to having a user interface, a graphical interface, which just can't be duplicated on a text-only machine. Also, we are using Linux Mint because of the fact that we don't want to spend a lot of time configuring our operating system. There are more exotic ways to set it up, but if you just want something that just you install and it works, Linux Mint. One thing you might encounter on if you're putting this on a computer is that sometimes it does lag behind the newest technology. So if you go out and buy good example I'm making this video 2025. They just had Qualcomm Snapdragon processors come out on laptops. You can't use it on that. You would have to be careful. Some of the newer, just anytime a new generation of processor comes out, there is some lag time. So just be aware of that. Double check that. With the virtual machines, though, it doesn't matter. It'll run the host operating system install. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead and restart. So it's installed. We're going to restart now. Okay, so at this point, notice that my mouse got trapped again, so it's Control-Alt on the left-hand side. At this point, what we're going to do is we're actually going to power off the device. We're going to go to power and we're going to go shut down guests. In general, what you would be doing is that okay, so basically I powered off the device, so that is necessary while you're installing it. Now we're going to go back in and we're going to actually run the installed operating system. So we're going to go back to where I'm going to click 17. I'm just going to pin it to my taskbar, so I'm going to right click taskbar. We're going to click on Mint 21, and then we're going to right click, or we can actually just go down to Edit Virtual Machine Settings. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to this DVD SATA drive, and we're just going to click on Use Physical Drive. So we're going to be taking out the ISO file, basically, and we're just going to go ahead and click OK. Notice that I can always adjust the amount of processors and hard disk and RAM. The hard disk is harder, but the RAM and processor we can do. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and play the virtual machine. We no longer have the ISO installed. We're just going to go ahead and click yes. Okay, and it's starting up for the first time. All right, and the last just word on operating these virtual machines. You never want to just turn off your host computer. So like if I go down here and I shut down the host computer without gracefully turning off the virtual machine, you will have problems. So remember that these virtual machines are a little unstable. You have to kind of baby them. You got to be a little careful with them. So basically, if we have this, you can unclick Show Dialog at Startup and click X. So this is the operating system as it is. Notice that now we can just operate it. Notice that now the mouse doesn't get stuck in here. We can onto the other. I can also get into that later, but okay. So the one thing that we do want to say is that you don't just want to turn off the computer or close the window or do anything that basically is going to cause it to shut down not gracefully. You always want to have a graceful shutdown. So basically, what you want to do on these to keep them running stably is inside the virtual machine, just shut everything off. So close all of your programs, close all your documents, get it back to its state just like this. And then you're going to click the X up here, and we're going to go ahead and just, you can usually click suspend or power. You can also do power off. That's fine too. I tend to suspend more than power off, but basically you can do either. But you want to definitely do this from workstation, not from the host OS. Okay, so just get everything closed in the virtual machine, pack it all back up, and then close from here, and you can either suspend or power off each time. All right, and that is it. That is how to install Linux Mint on VMware. Best of luck.